Crypto Caesar Capital. Hope you're well. It's the 17th of August, 2025, and we're going to do a video today on Bitcoin. We're going to look at Bitcoin. We're going to look at the altcoin market, and we're going to look at Ethereum. And you know that I only usually do a video when it's worth doing a video, and I think it's certainly worth doing a video now. Before we jump into the charts, shameless plug for the group. If you want to join the VIP group, please either reach out to us via the website. It's only $499 for a full premium membership for 12 months. So either reach out to us on the website or reach out to me direct on Twitter, but make sure you reach out to the correct Crypto Caesar with the blue tick, because there are too many scammers. Okay, let's go back to the chart. So we're in a kind of a really important position at the moment, because if you are a 4-year cycle trader, which I am and have been since 2016, then you know that we are now getting very, very close towards the end of the cycle. But fear not, the last part of the cycle, usually you get the most gains, or the most parabolic move usually comes at the last part of the cycle. Now, there is the possibility that we could, or Bitcoin could, or the crypto market could extend into Q1. That is a possibility. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen, because I think anyone who says this isn't going to happen is just asking for trouble. But my view at the moment is that I think that the 4-year cycle remains. And it doesn't matter how much you say to me about Bitcoin treasuries, this, that, and the other. I still think that the way that Bitcoin's trading at the moment, the way things have moved over the last 4 years, it looks to me as though we are following the 4-year cycle. But I could be wrong, and I will just have to continue to look at that as we go. But what's important, and why this video is important today, is because we're going to look at seasonality. Seasonality is really, really quite important when you consider the crypto market and when you consider Bitcoin in particular, because there are certainly seasons within Bitcoin's cycle or oscillation behavior. Now, what we do know from this data is that Q4 is 100% of the time the best performing quarter, and the months that are the best performing months 100% of the time are October and November. So you can see the average quarterly returns for Bitcoin in Q4 are 85.42%, and the median is 52.31%. But if you look at the monthly returns on October and November, you will see that most of those gains, the average 21.89 in October and 46.02 in November, come from October and November, because December here, the median is -3%, and the average is 4.75%. So the likelihood is that the most or the bulk or the lion's share of the gains will come, I would suspect, in October and then November. Now, if you actually have a look at seasonality, let's go from June. So the average is about, for June, is -0.14%, and the median 2.2%. Bitcoin traded at 2.49% up for June, last June. So that's about right. Then in July, it traded 8.13%, the average 1.78, and the median -7.49, sorry. So far we've had a better August than we usually would. And it'll be interesting to see what happens as we move on into September, October. But if you go back and look at the averages, they kind of work out that, Bitcoin is trading around about those averages. I mean, look at May, plus 10%, the average is 8%. April, plus 14% we did. Bitcoin's average 13%. So, it kind of, the seasonality is a big thing in markets. There's a lot to it. But what we need to look out for now is what we're going to get in Q4. I think that there's probably going to be a bit of a lull towards the end of August. Maybe September, there might be a little bit of down. We're just trading in a range at the moment, the range being about 112K up to 123, 124K. So my view is that we probably, I would imagine, remain in this range through August and September. And then come October, November, December, I think that quarter Bitcoin is very likely to break out of this range and go potentially for its final peak. Now, interestingly enough, if we look at the average returns for quarter four, we've got an average return of 85.42% and a median return of 52.31%. And if we were to do a sort of an exercise where we sort of, made a case that potentially Bitcoin trades to the bottom of the range. Okay, so we're going to be conservative that Bitcoin continues to trade in this range, but opens October at the bottom of this range, 112K, because my view is I think that it holds this range. So let's say, for example, it holds this range, but starts its first trading day on the 1st of October at the bottom of the range at 112,642.13. And then it goes on to put in the median return for Q4, which is 52.3%. So 52.3% from the bottom of this range up. I'm going to have to check the chart out a bit. So 52.3. There we go, about that. So that would put Bitcoin at 171,000. Now, let's say it's a bit more bullish than that, and we don't get the median return, we get the average return. And of course, the average return is 85.42%. So we'll put that in. So again, conservative targets of trading at the bottom of the range, up 85.42%. 85.25% puts us at 208,000 or thereabouts. Okay, so two pretty good targets. The interesting thing about this target, the first target, the median of 52.3% is, if we look at Bitcoin. Here, this is the channel that we've talked about lots. Now, this, if we did a trend, not a trend base, just a basic fib extension from the top of the last cycle to the low of the last cycle, the 1618, which is a pretty significant Fibonacci extension number, puts Bitcoin at 180K. Okay, so that's not far from the median move from the bottom of that range we just talked about of 52.3%. That's almost pretty much confluent with that number of 171. So that's quite interesting. And then, of course, if Bitcoin were to trade higher and go for the average of about 210, that would put Bitcoin kind of almost at the top of this range, around about here. A little bit higher, 210, 212, or whatever it is. There could be deviations from it, but that is not too far, is it not, from the top of this channel? There could be, some form of deviation above it slightly, just getting above and then coming down for the cycle low in December 26. But both of these are quite interesting, to be honest. Both targets seem to be legitimate. I don't think they're moon boy targets at all. Bitcoin can really, really move hard, particularly in that Q4 with a median return, of 85%. Uh, in 2020, the Q4 move was 168%. In 2017, it was 215%. 2017 and 2013, it was 479%. So, there are, I don't think these are crazy targets at all, but quite interesting, really. But in my view, I would be very, very cautious about how you approach seasonality with price, because it does marry up pretty well. And I would be pretty cautious about continuing a position after Q4, because if you look at the seasonality chart, whilst Q1 is the second best performing financial quarter, it's never the best performing financial quarter after a 4-year cycle peak. So, for example, here in 2018, down 49% just in one quarter. That was, of course, after the 2017 peak. At your peril, I would be very, very cautious in relation to Q1. But as I said, I'm open to the cycle extending beyond but beyond Q4. But if we get this run up to the 1618, or we get either the median target or the average target, if either of those targets are met by the end of Q4, I would be very, very cautious at that point. Personally, myself and in our group, we will be taking profits around these areas. These are profit-taking areas. At the end of the day, we took positions from 20K down to 15K at the 4-year cycle low, and that is way beyond a 10x return and an extremely good return for us. So, we don't want to be heroes. We want to get out of this market alive. We want to come out with a good return, and a 10x return is a very, very good return for a 3-year hold of a position. You don't really get that in many markets. Right, so let's have a look at Bitcoin dominance. So Bitcoin dominance, very interesting. In my last video, or the last time I spoke about Bitcoin dominance, we noted that the monthly RSI had never been this high in the history of Bitcoin dominance at 73.48, like ridiculously overbought, really overbought. There's a monthly RSI. Very rare do you get readings that high. Never has it been that high before. Of course, this is an institutional rally. Bitcoin has been moving, altcoins haven't really been moving, but now we've got Ethereum moving, which is basically pulling down that dominance, and some of the major alts like Ripple, XRP, whatever you want to call it, and Sui and Link, and a few others are also moving, so it's drawing Bitcoin dominance down. But what's quite interesting is that we've got this is a logarithmic chart. This is a logarithmic MACD. It's LMACD by Chemist. If you're going to use a logarithmic chart, it's important to use a logarithmic MACD, so they are the same. Or in parity with one another. And what's really interesting here is that we've got a bearish crossover here. If you take a really close look, we've got this bearish cross on the LMACD. And what that means is that the huge momentum that it's had all the way up here, basically from the 1st of August 2022, which is around about the low of Bitcoin coming in around October 22. We've had this huge momentum, this sort of bullish momentum to the upside. You can see how it went green, it ticked green, it's been super bullish all the way up, but now it's waning, it's losing its momentum completely. Well, it's completely lost its momentum now because we have this cross, which is a very sort of good signal that now the momentum or the direction is going to change, and it's going to start going bearish for a while. Now, this is very good for altcoins. It means that certainly the more sort of top tier altcoins are going to move pretty hard. It's hard to say what's going to happen with the mid and low caps because this cycle has been a bit of a tricky one in relation to those. They could just stay stagnant, or maybe they might, gain a little bit of froth. Some might not. But I would say the sort of top 20 altcoins will probably do quite well in this setup. So, we've got this bearish MACD crossover, super positive for altcoins, and Bitcoin dominance, because of this, is now dropping. Okay, and you can see we've got these are monthly candles now, extremely bearish candles coming down towards 58%. Now, the as you can see on this chart, I've been through this chart so many times on this channel. I don't want to bore you if you're a regular listener or watcher of this channel. I won't go through it hugely, but at the end of the day, Bitcoin peaks come when Bitcoin dominance drops, because the reason why is because lots of risk starts to enter the market because Bitcoin is pushing, it's going up. Everybody's, a lot of people who first come into crypto buy Bitcoin and then they want to take more risk and then they buy altcoins, or some of the Bitcoin then flows into the altcoins, et cetera, et cetera. But what happens is Bitcoin dominance starts to drop because more risk appetite comes into the market, and therefore the dominance of Bitcoin drops because other assets other than Bitcoin start rising, which pulls the market cap or the total market cap downwards. Although Bitcoin market cap is obviously rising, but the total market cap of the crypto sphere is increasing outside of Bitcoin, which pulls the Bitcoin dominance down. So we've got these two very bearish candles, which is very good for altcoins, certainly the top 10, top 20, and you can see Ethereum has been really pushing. And this is why Bitcoin dominance is coming down. So it's coming down to 58%. There could be a little bit of a sort of resistance there, I would imagine, for a short while, because we've got this area of support here. This was a bit of a sticky area for it, but it got through at the end. So there might be some form of support here for a short while. Maybe it gets down to the bottom here, 58% by the end of August, and then maybe it sort of flirts with this area of support for September. Maybe there's a little bit of a pullback. And then I would imagine, if we're going to follow this sort of Q4 push with altcoins pushing with Bitcoin, maybe we're going to see something like this, and then it's going to start coming down. Big question is, how far is it going to drop? And that very much depends on how well the altcoins are going to do. This cycle, it's been a bit of a funny one, obviously, because we've had institutions involved, and they're not really interested in shit coins. They're only interested in things like Ethereum, Solana, etc. So I don't know. I mean, this zone here I've called the death zone. This is where Bitcoin dominance has sort of got to in previous cycles. This is the 2018 euphoria, January 18 peak, or the 2017 peak. That was the euphoria peak for altcoins, was in 2018 January. That was down here in the death zone. Then we had the sort of arguably the top for most altcoins in 2021 in May, getting down here to about 39%. But the big question is it actually going to go this low? I don't know. I mean, to be honest, if you can hold down to 48%, I think you've got big balls. It just very much depends on how well you're able to take risk. But for me, I think, if we're down here, Bitcoin's trading at like between 170 and 100 and 200K. Ethereum's at like 10 plus K. I think that would be enough for me. I mean, for the sake of another 3 or 4% down here, I mean, maybe I would take blind share in my position and let 10, 20% run, see what happens. But Got to have big balls for that, man. But I'm fairly sort of I wouldn't say certain, but I'm fairly comfortable in saying that I think Bitcoin dominance would probably come down to around about the 48% area, and for me, that's an area of absolute caution and profit taking. So let's take a look at Ethereum quickly. So Ethereum, hey, Ethereum. Every cycle, same things are said about Ethereum. But at the end of the day, Ethereum is Ethereum. Okay. So many idiots on Twitter in particular love to call out Ethereum, saying it's shit and it's never going to run an all-time high again. And here we are at the all-time high. And what you've got to remember with Ethereum is the second largest cryptocurrency by market cap. It's not going anywhere right now, okay? It's got the market, okay? It's going to take a lot for any other cryptocurrency to come along and, try and take the market cap of Ethereum. It's going to be very, very difficult, extremely difficult. It's the second largest in market cap. It is the undisputed king of total value locked. There's more value locked in Ethereum than any other altcoin. It is the king of decentralized finance. It is the king of NFTs, and it is the king of Web3. It's also the king of shitcoins. I mean, most shitcoins on the market are built on the Ethereum virtual machine, or were at one point. So it's wild to me. It's just wild to me that people were talking shit again about Ethereum. It's just wild, really. And in the group, we have a model portfolio structure, which is basically this. It's very, very straightforward. It works on a Sharpe ratio basis. And we think that this is the sweet spot. We say at least your portfolio must be at least 50% Bitcoin, at least, and at least. So for me, it's way more than 50%. It's about 80%. But for some people, they like to take a little bit more risk, etc. But we say at least 50% Bitcoin. At least, if you've got 50% Bitcoin, 25% Ethereum, and then 25% in the better performing altcoins. At least sort of 60% of those altcoins have got to be top 20, and then you can take some sort of wild card bets on others. But that 25% allocation to Ethereum in our model portfolio has worked out really well for us, and obviously there were times when everyone got a little bit worried about it. And I'm sure some people sold Ethereum for Solana and so on and so forth. But, we've proved the point. And this is exactly why one of the best Sharpe ratios in crypto is 70% Bitcoin, 30% Ethereum. Okay. And if you speak to anyone on Wall Street who's in crypto, that is what they're kind of advising their clients. It's the sweet spot or the Goldilocks sort of area of Sharpe ratio in crypto. And this is exactly why. And I think Ethereum is going to do really quite well this cycle. Just a basic sort of fib extension on Ethereum to the 1618, which I think that it's quite possible that it's going to reach this level, is 12.6. And I think Ethereum is going to get there. And when Ethereum moves, it moves super, super fast, like really fast. And all of the gains in Ethereum come really, really quickly. For example, if we go back to the previous cycle, when again everyone was doubting Ethereum, and all the XRP army were saying that XRP was going to flip Ethereum, absolutely madness. Those gains from its previous all-time high to its peak came very, very quickly. That 222% came really, really quickly. And if we have a look at how quickly that happened, so it breached the all-time high about there, and then bink, that was basic. I mean, it pulled back and it came up and teetered up a few $100 more or whatever. But really, that's where the big move happened. That happened in 14 weeks. Okay, so just over 3 months. And what we've got now is we're facing a situation where we are potentially heading into a cycle high, a 4-year cycle high, which could happen in October, November, or December, which is essentially about 3 or 4 months away. So it would not surprise me at all. I don't think it's a crazy suggestion at all, or assumption to make that Ethereum's just going to, in 3 months come up to around about the 12K mark. And that would be a really nice area for taking profit, given that we're taking our positions in Ethereum around about sort of 1500 mark back in September 2023. So that, that's what's that? That's a nice little. I mean, we put out a report in the group in September 2023 saying you want 50% Bitcoin. We were already in Bitcoin because we'd taken positions from 20K down to 15K. Then we wrote a long report saying, 25% Ethereum, 50% Bitcoin, suggested some altcoins, etc. So positions were taken here in Ethereum around about $1,500, and if it goes up to this 1618 extension, then you're looking at a 668.26 gain, which I think is pretty good. It's a 6.6x move. I think that's pretty good. You don't really get that on Wall Street. So, and it's one of those situations where you can sleep at night. You're not. If you're trading ApeCoin and Fartcoin and boobs and all that sort of stuff, I mean, it's probably good fun, but you wouldn't want to hold those positions for 3 years, that's for sure. Anyway, that's it, guys. Let's get ready for Q4, okay? Average 85%, median 52%. In my view, we're going to at least get the median of 52%, which is going to take Bitcoin to 171. That is my view. I think that this has a high probability of happening. I think it's more likely than not. And when I say that, I think there's more than a 50% chance of this happening. And potentially we might get this full blown extension out and get the 85.42% return, taking Bitcoin up to 208, 210, which strangely enough is pretty much at the top of this channel or close to it. All right, that's it. So again, if you want to join the group, email us through the website, link in the description, or you can just reach out to me directly on Twitter. Have a good one, guys. Speak soon. Thank you very much for listening. If you can like and subscribe to this channel, that would be, I'd really appreciate that, because, we do our best here. We're not moon boys. We're quite conservative, but we want our listeners to learn. We want our listeners to make money in this market, and we want you to survive. We want you to survive, and we want you to be able to take a nice bit of profit, take your family on holiday, buy yourself a new car, pay your mortgage off, whatever it is, and then, ride another cycle, make more money, keep accumulating your wealth to the point where you are retired for the rest of your life, and there are some people in our group who are now in a position where they don't have to work another day in their fucking life. Okay. And that's what we want to do. There's, a couple of people said to me the other day in the group, thank you so much. I'm almost at the point where I can now retire for the rest of my life. I don't have to worry about money ever again. And that's what I like to hear. That's what we want to do. We want people to be free, to not worry about things anymore, and have the life that they deserve. All right. So thank you very much for that. Take care, like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye.